What's wrong? You look terrible. Are you feeling sick? One holiday morning, my daughter suddenly covered her mouth looking nauseous and rushed to the bathroom. Though startled, all I could do was gently rub her back as she retched in distress. Even when I asked if she was feeling unwell after her nausea subsided, she insisted nothing was wrong. While I worried with suspicion, one possibility crossed my mind. Could she be experiencing morning sickness due to pregnancy? But my daughter was only 13, surely pregnancy wasn't possible. Though I tried to dismiss the thought, I couldn't shake the possibility and became terribly anxious. Feeling unable to keep these concerns to myself, I consulted my husband, saying, "I think our daughter might be pregnant." However, in contrast to my serious tone, my husband laughed it off, saying I was overthinking things. No way. She's still a child. How could she possibly be pregnant? It's probably just a stomach bug or something. I'll take her to the doctor. My husband and daughter left in the car. But when they hadn't returned by nightfall and I couldn't bear the worry any longer, I rushed to the police station. 3 days later, the police contacted me with unbelievable news that plunged me into the depths of despair. Please stay calm as you listen. You see, about your husband and daughter. The truth they revealed was, my name is Samantha. I'm a 43-year-old housewife living with my husband Gerald, our 13-year-old daughter Pamela, and my mother who suffers from dementia. Our daughter, now in her second year of middle school, never went through typical teenage rebellion and maintained good communication with both me and her husband. She would go shopping and have lunch with me, or go out with her father. We were quite a close-knit family. Though caring for my mother with dementia was challenging, we managed with help from daycare services and care managers. I felt blessed with our ordinary life as a family of 4, never imagining that this happiness would soon be shattered. I first noticed something was wrong one Saturday morning. While I was relaxing in the living room, my daughter emerged from her room looking pale. "Pamela, what's wrong? You look terrible. Are you feeling sick?" I called out in surprise, but she just covered her mouth looking nauseated and hurried to the bathroom. As she retched painfully in the bathroom, all I could do was rub her back in shock. When I asked if she was feeling unwell after her nausea subsided, she insisted nothing was wrong. But suddenly vomiting like that, something had to be wrong. While worrying suspiciously, one possibility crossed my mind. Could my daughter be pregnant? Could this nausea be morning sickness? Though I first considered common causes of nausea like food poisoning or stomach flu, the fact that no one else in the family had symptoms, combined with how desperately she tried to hide it, seemed strange. But she was only 13. There were no signs of her having a boyfriend, and surely she couldn't be engaging in such activities. Though I tried to dismiss it, I couldn't completely shake the possibility of pregnancy from my mind and became terribly distraught. If she really was pregnant, it would be far too much strain on her young body. I needed to have a serious discussion with her about everything, including who might be involved. Trying to contain my anxiety, I was about to speak with her when my smartphone suddenly rang. It was an incoming call. Looking at my continuously ringing phone, I saw it was from the daycare facility where my mother with dementia attended. Calls from daycare usually meant urgent matters. Reluctantly, I glanced at my daughter before answering. Sure enough, they were panicked. My mother was acting out and they needed me to come immediately. As her dementia progressed, my mother would sometimes throw tantrums for no apparent reason. When this happened, seeing my face would calm her down. Apparently, she mistook me for her own mother. Because of this, the daycare staff had gotten into the habit of calling me whenever they had trouble containing a situation. Though I hesitated to leave my daughter before learning what was wrong, I couldn't ignore my mother's outburst. So I decided to ask my husband to look after our daughter. However, when I consulted him in his room saying, "I think our daughter might be pregnant," he laughed it off saying I was overthinking things, in stark contrast to my serious tone. No way. Pamela's still a child. How could she possibly be pregnant? It's probably just a stomach bug or something. I'll take her to the doctor, so don't worry and go take care of your mother. My husband's cheerful words helped calm my unsettled feelings. Yes, I must be overthinking things. Surely my 13-year-old daughter couldn't be pregnant. Besides, we were very close. My daughter told me everything about school and her friends. I couldn't imagine her keeping such a big secret from me. Surely it was all in my head and she was simply feeling under the weather. Convinced of this, I left our daughter with my husband and headed to the daycare facility. Several hours later, when I returned home with my mother, who was in better spirits as usual after seeing me, my husband and daughter were gone, and his car was missing. There was a note on the dining table in my husband's handwriting saying, "Taking her to a clinic that's open on holidays," so it seemed he really had taken our daughter to the doctor. Grateful for my reliable husband, I began preparing dinner while worrying about our daughter's condition. Contrary to my expectation that a doctor's visit wouldn't take long, my husband and daughter hadn't returned by evening. I thought perhaps the clinic was very busy, but it was getting close to sunset. Growing concerned about how late it was getting, I tried calling my husband's smartphone, but couldn't get through. Even if they were at a hospital where they needed to be mindful of medical equipment, these days you're not asked to completely power off phones in waiting rooms. Normally my husband would just put his phone on silent mode rather than turning it off completely. Suddenly getting a bad feeling, I frantically called several hospitals I knew of to ask if my husband and daughter had been there. Though many hospitals were strict about personal information and wouldn't tell me if they'd had patients that day, some did tell me, perhaps sensing my desperation. But from those hospitals too, I only got responses that they hadn't come in. As night fell with still no sign of them, I grew increasingly worried about where my husband and daughter could have gone, with his phone still not connecting and no trace of them at any hospitals. Perhaps they had gotten caught up in some incident or accident. Unable to bear my worry any longer, I took my mother and went to consult the police. However, the police didn't take my concerns seriously. "We haven't received any accident reports, and since she's with her father, we can't consider your daughter missing. You're worrying too much. I'm sure they'll come home soon," the police officer said with a wry smile, seemingly exasperated by my anxious nature. Even so, the fact remained that my husband and daughter hadn't returned. But since the officers seemed unwilling to discuss it further, I had no choice but to just file a missing persons report before heading home. After returning home, I contacted my in-laws and my daughter's friends asking if they had seen them, but only received responses that they hadn't. Trying my husband's phone again yielded no response. Maybe they would just show up casually as if nothing had happened. Believing this, I waited all night for their return, but dawn broke with still no sign of either of them. After a night had passed, I thought there might be some new information. Clinging to even the slightest possibility, I visited the police station again in the morning. I desperately explained that my daughter might be pregnant and I was terribly worried about her condition, but again the police wouldn't take me seriously. There's no evidence of criminal activity at this point, and there's nothing we can do. Their attitude practically screamed for me to stop interfering with their work, leaving me no choice but to back down. 3 days after my husband and daughter went missing, the situation took a devastating turn. I received a call from the police station where I'd filed the missing persons report, saying they'd found my husband's car in the ocean. I had just dropped my mother off at daycare when I got the call, and I rushed to the police station. There, I received news I didn't want to believe. Please stay calm as you listen. Actually, we found your husband and daughter's bodies along with the car. Unable to process the words immediately, I was struck speechless. My husband and daughter were found dead. Did that mean? Are you saying they're gone? I whispered, and the officer nodded. No, this can't be true. Why? Why my husband and daughter? Please tell me this isn't true. Overwhelmed by shock, I collapsed crying right there. I couldn't believe my precious husband and daughter were gone. Maybe the bodies they found were just similar-looking people. Though I asked the police this through my tears, they confirmed the bodies were definitely my husband and daughter, and I felt like I was going mad with grief. The police officer reluctantly approached me with something else to say. This is very difficult to ask, but is there any possibility this was a murder-suicide? Apparently, because I had consulted them about my daughter possibly being pregnant, the police speculated that perhaps the husband had impregnated his daughter and, after his wife found out, drove them both to suicide. Such a thing would never happen with my husband. Believing in him, I denied the police's words. However, the police couldn't dismiss the possibility and asked me to confirm. Recently, did your husband and daughter often go out alone together? That's ridiculous. I tried to deny it, but hesitated slightly as something came to mind. Recently, I had often seen my husband and daughter whispering together. Since they were close like my daughter and me, I hadn't felt anything strange about it in daily life. But thinking back, hadn't they been unusually physically close during those whispered conversations? And their expressions seemed somewhat giddy, with a different kind of intimacy than usual. My heart wavered between wanting to believe in my husband's innocence and growing suspicion. Seeing my obvious distress, the police officer took me to the morgue. Laid out in that cold room were unmistakably my husband and daughter. Seeing my beloved family members in such a state, I broke down crying again. Why did my husband and daughter have to die? Just days ago we had been living in what seemed like perfect happiness, and now I felt plunged into the depths of despair. As I wept, the police officer handed me some personal effects. "We found these in their pockets. Do you recognize them?" In a clear plastic bag were a glass keychain and a USB drive. The glass bead keychain had been in my daughter's pocket, and the USB drive in my husband's. Had my daughter owned such a keychain? As I puzzled over the unfamiliar item, I suddenly remembered that one of my husband's friends was a glassmaker. I thought I might have seen similar keychains at his friend's shop. Maybe he would know something. I told the police about this friend and left the station. A few days after receiving news of my husband and daughter's deaths, the situation took a dramatic turn. The police investigation revealed that this wasn't a murder-suicide or accident, but a crime. And the glassmaker friend was arrested as a suspect. His confession and interviews with related parties brought various facts to light. First, the glass keychain found in my daughter's pocket was something she had made as a surprise present for me. Wanting to give me something for my birthday, my daughter had consulted with my husband about what might make me happy. Hearing her request, my husband remembered that his glassmaker friend's workshop offered hands-on crafting experiences, so the two of them had visited several times. This explained why my husband and daughter had been whispering together and going out recently. After I left that day when I suspected morning sickness, my husband apparently asked our daughter if she had done anything that could result in pregnancy. She turned pale and confessed that the glassmaker might have done something inappropriate to me. When visiting the workshop to make the keychain, my husband had only done drop-offs and pickups, leaving my daughter and the glassmaker alone for the actual work. The work was done in the back workshop, but my daughter said there were times she fell asleep and couldn't remember, and when she woke up her clothes were disheveled. Though she was confused, the glassmaker acted normally when my husband came to pick her up, so she thought maybe she had imagined it. She hadn't told me because she desperately wanted it to be a misunderstanding. After hearing her trembling confession, my husband immediately bought a pregnancy test and gave it to her. The test was negative, and the symptoms like morning sickness turned out to be from psychological stress. Even though she wasn't pregnant, if the glassmaker had actually assaulted our daughter, that was absolutely unforgivable. To confirm the truth, my husband and daughter immediately visited the glass workshop. At first, the glassmaker denied everything when my husband confronted him. However, a former apprentice appeared and testified that the master had previously drugged and assaulted several customers during hands-on experiences. He had apparently been waiting for a chance to expose his master's crimes, and while my husband and the glassmaker were arguing, he snuck into the workshop office and copied evidence onto a USB drive. When the former apprentice played the data on his laptop, there were images of several unconscious women being stripped, including pictures of my daughter. When my husband raged at what he had done, the glassmaker claimed, "I only undressed them, nothing more." Though the truth of this was questionable, my husband decided they couldn't ignore that there were multiple victims and urged him to turn himself in. The glassmaker appeared repentant and agreed to my husband's suggestion. However, it was all an act. He asked my husband, who had come by car, to take him to the police station, but on the way requested, I want to see the ocean one last time," and had him stop near the water. Seizing his chance, he used a stun gun to knock out my husband and daughter. Then he left them in the car, released the parking brake, put the car slightly in gear, and arranged for it to roll into the ocean before fleeing the scene. Just as he planned, the car carrying my husband and daughter plunged into the ocean, and they never returned. The crime was discovered and the suspect arrested thanks to the former apprentice who had exposed the glassmaker's crimes. When he saw the news about my husband and daughter's deaths, he suspected his former master was responsible and reported it to the police. When the police questioned the glassmaker based on this tip, he confessed. This was how my husband and daughter had met their end. Afterward, I served as chief mourner at their funeral. Everyone who attended grieved at their too early departure. While relatives wept, they managed awkward smiles and expressed gratitude to me. I'm sure they were happy, being able to live with someone as loving as you. Thank you for everything you've done. But no amount of gratitude could lift my spirits. I would never be able to see my beloved husband and daughter again, no matter how much I wished for it. Even though I knew how they died and their killer had been caught, it wouldn't bring them back. I spent several months in a daze, overwhelmed by despair. Now it was just me and my mother with dementia in the house that used to ring with my husband and daughter's laughter. Though I felt like I would go mad from loneliness and grief, having to care for my mother gave me something I had to do, which helped distract me somewhat. Perhaps I found salvation in caring for my mother, who needed protection just like my daughter had as a baby. After several months passed, I gradually began to accept the reality of life without them. One day, as I felt I was starting to recover from the shock, my daughter's friends came to visit. Seeing them pray before my daughter's memorial photo, I was moved to tears realizing how blessed she had been with good friends. Afterward, her friends turned to me and shared something. This is Pamela's social media account. It might be painful to look at, but we want you to know how she felt. One friend held out her smartphone, showing my daughter's posts and pictures. As I scrolled through at their urging, I found numerous episodes about family outings and words of gratitude toward me and my husband. Summer vacation camping with family. The barbecue was amazing. Today is Mother's Day. Thank you always, Mom. Thank you too, Dad. Along with these words were pictures of my daughter beaming with joy. Before I knew it, I couldn't stop crying at seeing her thoughts and smiles. I hadn't known about the present she was secretly preparing or these wonderful social media posts. I thought I was close with my daughter and knew everything about her, but I realized now that wasn't true, and indescribable emotions welled up inside me. As I read on intently, I found a post about my daughter's dreams. In the future, I want to be a mother like Mom. And I want to become a care worker. I want to help Mom who works so hard taking care of Grandma. If she had such wonderful thoughts, I wish I could have heard them directly from her. All I could do was thank her friends, thinking about how this would never be possible now. The glassmaker who was arrested as a suspect in this case is currently on trial. Though not yet finalized, he will likely receive prison time. After this case came to light, other victims also filed charges against him. Furthermore, his personal information was exposed online, leading to public outrage and social condemnation. The glass keychain, my daughter's personal effect, was returned to me by the police after their investigation concluded. Though looking at it reminds me of the perpetrator and his crimes, it's also the last present from my daughter. And it was her silent message asking for the criminal to be caught. Thinking of this, I couldn't throw it away and vowed to cherish it. The grief of losing my husband and daughter will never completely heal, no matter how much time passes. However, I must move forward, treasuring what my daughter left behind and the memories of them both. Believing this is what my husband and daughter would want, I've taken my first step toward the future by beginning to study for my care worker certification. I want to be of more help in caring for my mother with dementia. And I want to carry on the dream that was so unfairly taken from my daughter before she could achieve it.